Hey, hey,
Oh, we're here?
we're here.
I was busy checking my phone. You sneak up on me, man.
Yeah. If only this were set at a certain time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I wish if you had just told me what time we were meeting, it would have been nice. But I wanna clear up something before we get going here. It's a pretty important thing. It's a rumor has been going around that I need to dispel. I don't know if you've heard about this, Michael, but there's a rumor going around among commenters on YouTube that you are my son.
I put my full name in there so people see that my actual father's name is there. Weimer, yeah.
Well, Weimer's your stage name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the nice thing is we've been called the best father-son duo on the internet, which is nice. It's nice to have a feather in my cap like that. But yeah, no, we're not related as far as we know.
Mhm. But we definitely
And
lean into the father-son dynamic as much as we possibly can for the
you
for the
think so?
viewers.
I
I
don't know.
mean,
Not really. I feel like usually you're my dad. You are for sure.
yep.
Michael's the one who takes care of me. I don't know. I'm not his dad.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
it's there's also the Gen Z conservatism, like trying to teach the Gen X degenerate thing. There's that dynamic happening too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, let's do that again. Wait, what is this? Gen Z is conservative and the Gen X are the hedonists.
Yeah, the Gen X they lived through the prosperity and they lived through the freest time and they were the degenerates, and Gen Z is in a pool of chaos, and they're reconstructing meaning and they're getting super religious, and so they're teaching the Gen Xers the ways of their grandparents.
No offense, but you all have nothing to teach us. Sorry. I mean, we invented hip hop. Okay. Do I need to say anything more?
Mhm.
We work. We work hard. We always have. And I appreciate people who work hard. Well, no, that's interesting. I mean, are Zoomers actually more conservative in that way?
Uh, Man, I think there's a phenomenon of well, okay, so Gavin talks about this. I've heard a lot of people say this that yeah,
McInnes.
McInnes, yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that boy, those Zoomers, when you hire them, they're lazy as hell, but they sure are obedient.
True. Right. Because they've been parented to death.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so they're very trained to obey authority. They're very trained to obey authority figures like parents and surrogate parents like me. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that makes sense. That was certainly my experience teaching Zoomers in college for 25 years. I guess
Mm-hmm.
some of them were actually millennials, but I've taught both millennials and Zoomers. But yeah, very comfortable with authority.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like
Yeah.
not reflexively rebellious against authority the way that the great generations of the past were. This is really my problem with your generation, is that, and millennials too, is that way too deferential to authority and really not rebellious, all the while thinking that they are radical revolutionaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
For taking on racism and transphobia. But of course, they get their ideas about racism and transphobia from whom? From their Gen X parents.
Yeah.
I mean, to a T. I mean, they haven't invented any of this stuff.
But
So it's all
they've been parented to death, and they expect there to be an authority figure constantly to refer to. You saw this in the I guess campus politics that were playing out. Like they always wanted the professors and the staff to basically step in where their parents would, when it came to like curfews and their sex life even. But like I think that once they're finally on their own, they either expect everybody else to be an authority to them, or they're desperately trying to reconstruct a new authority to obey, and that leads to some conservative tendencies, I think.
Yeah. Oh no, totally. That's why when you described your generation as being generally conservative, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, even though superficially they're not. I mean, superficially they look like a bunch of freaks, blue-haired, trans, anti-racist, marching in the street, cop fighters. But no, of course, it's fundamentally doing what their parents told them to do and told them and how to be. They're being how their parents told them how to be. Yeah, no, I think this is the most conservative generation possibly in American history. I mean, again, if you look at least all the youth generations of the last 100 years since the 20s, since the 1910s, really, that's where you got the good stuff from. I mean, in the 20s, it was young people who were dancing to jazz and young women who were wearing short dresses and going out in the clubs and smoking and drinking and dancing when they weren't supposed to. And then in the 40s, it was similar with the rise of rock and roll and all that. And then, in the 50s, very famously, teenagers became sort of like the rebels that Hollywood started to pay attention to and celebrate. And the James Dean Rebel Without a Cause thing. And then, of course, the 60s and 70s seemed like nothing but a youth rebellion. And then my generation was the last one, I think. I mean, I think we were pretty rebellious, not just hip hop, but punk rock. That's Gen X, like the real punk rock. That's a Gen X product. And not just music, of course, but there was always radical politics among the youth beginning in the 1910s and 1920s. If you look at the Socialist Party membership back then and the Communist Party membership in the 30s, and then various radical groups in the 60s and 70s, it was chock full of people in their 20s and 30s or younger. Now, I mean, you do have some of those radical groups, of course, but they are usually sponsored by Nike. And you don't have, there's been no, it's always, music is always at the edge of it, the leading edge of this youth rebellion, at least in this country. But you don't see that anymore. There's no new rebellious music genre that your generation has created. I mean, there's new music forms, sort of new music genres, but it's like techno and stuff like that. That doesn't
It's all
have any
created in isolation on a computer. There's no rebellious music scene. Like punk was a scene. You had to wear certain clothes. You had to get violent at certain venues. You had to do certain substances.
Right.
Hip hop was a scene. You had to put the cardboard down. You had to dance and you had to tag up walls. There's not that cultural movement in meat space in the real world anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is how you guys rebel. This is how you go dancing at a club.
Yeah.
This is how you relate to other human beings. This is how you learn. I mean, it's just sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I was just talking to Jeff Schellenberger. I interviewed him today for Unregistered, and he talks a lot about this stuff. When we were talking about Rene Girard and mimetic desire, how according to Girard, all of our desires we're basically imitating. So there's no such thing as like an autonomous desire that springs naturally from our inner soul that is just ours, that we're always imitating other people. But it's unclear to Jeff, and it's unclear to me, that the current youthful generation is any less rebellious than prior generations, because you could make the same case that Gen X was, in making rock and roll and hip hop, just sort of taken the music of our parents, which was like 50s and 60s rock and stuff and jazz, and kind of just turning it upside down a bit, but it's the same basic forms. And also in some ways worse than that. I mean, just renewing what they did, which was to rebel against their parents through music, through fashion, through style, through language, slang, all that, grooming, long hair, short hair, whatever was rebellious at the time. Yeah, I mean, it's not fundamentally different. I mean, my generation from what the 60s generation did and the 1920s generation did. So yeah, it's unclear to me.
Well, you bring that up. I think my generation, like you see this in soldiers, like so many soldiers signed up after 9/11 because there's like a generational inferiority complex that they never fought a real war, that they generationally they'd never had a real struggle, and all these soldiers who never saw combat were so excited, and all these people who came from military families were so excited to finally have something to live for.
Right.
And I think there's an inferiority complex culturally too amongst us, that we see like music from the 70s. We were talking about music from the 70s last week, and that's still what's selling. You know, a Queen greatest hits album or a Led Zeppelin greatest hits album is going to outsell every new band's album, no matter how big of a push it gets from Columbia Records, you know?
Right.
So yeah, there's a feeling of cultural inferiority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a teenager and in college, I and my friends, we were all into music, and I don't think any of us really listened much to anything earlier than our lifetime. You know, we didn't listen to the music from the 70s or 60s or 50s. We knew about it. I mean, it was around, but we didn't choose to listen to it. We had so much brand new music of our generation to listen to all the time back in the 80s and 90s that we didn't need to. But nowadays, my God, my son's Spotify playlist is basically the same as my playlist. I mean, it's the same kind of stuff, and it's the same artists, and it's the same genres, and I mean, it's music from the even 70s in his case. Like, he listens to Led Zeppelin, and he on forward, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s music. And I think that's true for a lot of people your age, right? People in their 20s now. My son's 21.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I should be sad about that. Should I be sad about that?
A little bit. So when Anthony Esselin was on the Unregistered interview show, I think he talked about this, about what culture really is, and he just basically says,
yeah,
a side of a good culture is being able to sing songs that your grandparents sang and that their grandparents sang, and that's how you know you have a real rich culture, is that you're both repeating the motions that your ancestors went through, but you're also empathizing with them and telling the same stories. So I think the best, you know, that's the best version of what's happening with Gen Z a little bit, with their obsession with nostalgia.
So, right. I mean, Anthony Esselin is a traditionalist Catholic, and just about the most brilliant one, by the way. One of my favorite interviews ever, one of my favorite intellectuals ever, even though he and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum politically in so many ways. But I think he's a brilliant thinker. But yes, he illuminates and makes clear to me, or made clear to me, the deep appeal of traditionalist conservatism. Right. And what he said there in that interview is what you just said, which is that, in a sense, I don't know if he used the term happiness, but I think this is what he meant. Like, a deep feeling of satisfaction can be had from engaging in activities that, as you say, are rooted in the past, that were done by our ancestors, by generations before us, which gives us, I think Anthony Esselin said, gives us a feeling of rootedness and place and belonging that, to be happy, I think anyone needs. I think you need to some extent, that feeling of being of a place and in a place, of a people, of a particular community and culture, rather than just being sort of this rootless, floating, atomized individual out there doing my own thing just with my phone. So maybe your generation has discovered the conservative virtues, right? Maybe it's not, maybe we shouldn't be sad. Maybe that's the new thing that your generation has discovered. That's your form of rebellion. That's the new thing, is to be old.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, a lot of times my generation doesn't know how to talk to their parents, and the only thing they can talk about is music. And if they all listen to the same stuff, you know, I see that conversation happen a lot.
First of all, I think your generation talks to their parents more easily than any previous generation, because you're so damn close to your parents. I mean, I know it's true for my son. I mean, it's like he's very close to both me and my ex-wife, his mother. which in ways that were like inconceivable. And like a lot of Gen Xers I know who have kids, and I know lots of Gen Xers have kids, of course, and it's always this way. It's like, we don't talk to our parents. We never did. We mostly hate our parents. Most people I know of my age, or have major serious reservations. Whereas our kids and their friends seem to be best friends with their parents. Which, again, like if you if you want rebellion, that's going to be very disappointing. If you want people to feel comfortable and safe and secure and like they belong and ultimately happy, maybe conservatism is the way to go. Maybe being rooted in the past makes us happier. Maybe being connected to tradition and things that are old is more satisfying than just breaking windows once again. Yet another riot by another young generation. Every generation of youth has broken windows over the last 100 or so years. I mean, literally, right? There's been actual like youth riots and wilding out in the streets and fighting cops and over various things and various issues. Some of which may have been righteous, but in some ways it feels often like just a rehearsal of rebellion rather than anything that's constructive or positive. I mean, the creation of all those music forms that I listed by the young in the last century, that's nice and new and rebellious in a sense, but it wasn't like deliberate, conscious, explicit political rebellion, right? Very different. It was just people doing things new that turned out to be fun and free and that other people liked. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying not to be sad. If I didn't have a child who was a member of that generation, I might not care enough as much, but I don't know. I mean, my son's doing well. He's pretty happy. He's very happy actually right now. So, yeah, it's interesting. Is this the first conservative youth generation?
See, I don't like the distinctions of right and left and conservative and liberal too much, because like I think pretty much my generation is the one that just looked at their phone and said, "Oh, my phone's telling me to vote for Joe Biden. I better vote for Joe Biden." Right. So, but that, to me, that's a form of conservatism. That's you're electing the oldest, whitest man on the ballot against the populist insurgent candidate.
Yeah.
And yeah, Biden, you're electing the tough on crime guy essentially to bring back normalcy. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's conservatism. I guess I'm talking about traditionalism.
Mm-hmm.
As what Anthony Eastland was talking about, a connection to the past.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like the music, like you listen to everything, but you're very connected to older musical forms.
Yeah. It's so weird. Like, I think the Gen Z attention span is so tiny, but we also have access to all the information in the world. So I think we like get little hints, like we get little ghosts yelling at us from the past, and then we get like obsessed with them, like we're just reaching out for them.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I've been obsessed with David Allan Coe for the last week, who is the greatest country singer who ever lived. And let me tell you why he means so much to me.
Okay.
I'm not a redneck. I wasn't born a redneck. I might die one, but my sister married one. Yep. And the two most meaningful musical experiences of my life were Amazing Grace at my grandfather's funeral on my dad's side. Everybody sang along. And then hearing my dad's side of the family and my brother-in-law's family sing "You Never Called Me by My Name" during her wedding reception. And "You Never Called Me by My Name" was the song that every honky-tonk bar would close by playing that song on the jukebox. Everybody would be as drunk and as loud as possible, and they'd bang their glasses along to it. And like to see that happen and to see that there's a real culture there and a shared experience, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for in society. And I don't see it anymore.
Shared experience. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah. I think music, that's the thing, is like our music is so obsessed with like individual expression, because like part of I don't want to blame capitalism, man, but like the record companies want to sell an individual to put on the poster. That's the product, you're buying Michael Jackson, but really the purpose that music serves is so much deeper culturally than that, than the icon, than the product on your shelf. And I think we lost that over the last 100 years, and we're starting to rebuild that.
Here's how you can judge the vitality of any demographic. It is whether they dance or not, and to what extent, how much they dance, and in what way they dance. And I mean this. I mean, again, if you look at all the youthful, rebellious generations that I listed earlier, dancing was at the center of all that, right? Beginning with the jazz age in the 20s and all the young people who went to the jazz clubs all over the country, and of course all the way through rock and roll in the 50s and disco in the 70s. And so there's been always, and dancing. Barbara Ehrenreich actually wrote an entire book about this, which I have mixed feelings about, but she has a decent point, which is that dancing, social dancing, that kind of I'm talking about, the anarchic kind of dancing, the stuff for pleasure, people have done, not formal dancing, but fun social dancing, has always represented a form of, I guess you might call it tacit rebellion. It's never explicit or political consciously, but it is always dancing. That kind of dancing has always been threatening to power, because it is anarchic, because it is based on sensual pleasure rather than duty to community. It is individualistic, but it is also in that people are enjoying themselves, and they're doing the dancing to feel good in their own bodies. But it's also social in ways that have often been very threatening to the establishment. People of different unsavory backgrounds joining together on the dance floor has always been seen as a threat to American civilization. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, John F. Kennedy and Barry Goldwater held hearings in the Senate in the 1950s about the threat of rock and roll to American civilization. And they talked about dance halls in particular. So here's the question. Is your generation dancing?
Well, TikTok, this is the problem with TikTok, is they are dancing, but they're dancing alone in front of a screen for likes. They're not. Yeah.
Man, fuck your generation. Tired of you kids. All right, let's talk about some news, man.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. Oh man, one more thing on the music tip.
Okay.
So you talk about the rebellious nature of dancing and music. There are songs, definitely in David Allan Coe's discography, but there are songs out there that are magic, that if you play them, they will start a riot. Like Limp Bizkit's Break Stuff has been like banned off of jukeboxes and banned off of karaoke bars because there will be broken windows if that song gets played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. No, it's true. There are many songs that do that have that effect.
Yeah.
That galvanize the listeners immediately. And a lot of those have been co-opted by sports stadiums, right? Like Queen's oeuvre has been, adopted by every sports team in the world to get people pumped up for the game. But there's also, I mean, one could say that the music of, even though they're a bunch of Maoist idiots, Rage Against the Machine has been that, for a lot of people. I bet Rage Against the Machine's music has caused quite a few fights and riots.
For me, the Woodstock 99 is like the peak of Gen X culture.
Okay.
In that, like, just numbers of people and numbers of acts that came there. Sure. And in the documentaries that just came out last year about Woodstock 99, they blame all of the violence on Limp Bizkit. when the riots got really bad, they were chanting "fuck you, I won't do what you tell me." They were chanting rage lyrics, and all the graffiti was rage stuff. It was all anti-capitalist rage lyrics, and they never acknowledged that. They all blamed it on the toxic masculinity of Limp Bizkit, which were just dudes who wanted to get laid and party.
Is that Fred Durst?
Yeah, Fred Durst.
Yeah. God, he is dumb. Wow. He is so dumb. He's just really dumb. I don't know. I just every time I hear him, he makes some really hilarious gaffe or faux pas. Like he's not very comfortable with the English language. Let's just say that.
Mhm.
I mean, he seems like a decent guy.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he got laid a lot.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm not gonna go to him for advice or, social analysis.
Yeah. No, I look to Fred Durst to write songs that will make people break stuff.
Exactly. Which is that's a great achievement, to write a song that makes people break stuff. Think about that.
Yeah. And this was the tacit, this was how our culture dealt with it. Is like, music is music, it's art, it is what it is, okay? If you write a song that can get people that riled up and to actually do something, it's not the artist's fault, it's society's fault, and the artist is just flashing a light on society and exposing cracks in society, and that they're actually serving a very necessary function. You haven't really gotten that in a long time from mainstream culture, or at least culture in the real world.
Yeah. Ice-T used to say, when he was being criticized for allegedly promoting violence and drug dealing, he said, "I'm just a reporter. I'm just reporting what's going on in my hood," or what went on in my hood, before he became a TV cop, which is one of the saddest ironies of all time. But yeah, I mean, although I do think he was kind of endorsing some violence, but hip hop does anyway. Yeah. Well, good luck to you and your colleagues in the traditionalist, the first traditionalist generation, and I hope you all can find your way to some place useful.
Oh my God! Just today, this photo of Pariah the doll and a bunch of her friends in New York doing the whole Trad-cath e-girl thing. They were all posing at church. Ooh. And that blew up, and all the right wingers were pissed off about it.
Oh, I missed this.
Yeah.
Yeah. The online, there's the online trad thing, which is embarrassing. And then there's serious traditionalists like Anthony Easelin. I mean, those are very different types. I mean, they both, look to the past with reverence, but other than that, they're very right. I mean, trad has become sort of a pop phenomenon online among young people, and it just kills me. These guys who spend their day on Twitter talking like rating women's bodies from 1 to 10, and then talking about how they will only marry a virgin. I just find that awesome.
Yeah, there is. So Pariah the doll and her friends in that scene, which ties into Red Scare, ties into Jack. That brand of Trad-cath, I think, is not so much trad, but it's super informed by Paglia, in that they see like Madonna as just a generational like talent who really, really understood art. And you can't have Madonna without Catholicism. You can't have these transgressions and expressions of sexuality without a worldview that really rigidly defines sexuality,
No, I don't know. I'm not sure what's the argument? Why?
It's just, you don't get Madonna's art without, you can't profane something if nothing is sacred.
Okay. Yeah. Well, she needed something to rebel against.
Yeah, that, and just like, I'll take it back even farther with like Dante. Like Dante was excommunicated, but the Divine Comedy is like every Catholic like regards as the greatest work of human imagination, even though he was pretty much excommunicated at the time for it.
Right.
Yeah, this artistic vision, well, just like the arts, what's the word, libertine Catholics, and the ones that really understand the arts, I guess they just have a reverence for tradition and a reverence for morality. Like nothing has any meaning if it's just like a Jackson Pollock painting. If you sin is beautiful in that it's tragedy, you know?
Mm-hmm. I keep thinking about the like a prayer.
Like,
Yeah,
like a prayer.
like a
Yeah.
prayer of the video.
That video, yeah.
There's a Jesus figure in it. There's a burning cross in it. There's Madonna dancing, scantily clad. I mean, it was considered to be sacrilegious, and there were a lot of protests against that video and that song at the time by Christian right-wing groups. I mean, I think they even picketed a few times, her record company or whatever. But within that, yes, I mean, she's obviously making all these references to Catholicism. She's obviously a Catholic girl. And to me, I think she's finding within Catholicism the sensuality that is so prominent in the Catholic religion, the Catholic Church. I mean, it's a profoundly sensual religion, Catholicism, and in all sorts of ways. And I think that, yeah, if Madonna had been raised a Presbyterian, she probably wouldn't have become Madonna.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So here's a generational question. What's your stove? What's your stove top?
Oh yeah. So you just told me about this thing with the stove. I didn't know what was going on with the New York liberals. They're after our stoves.
Well,
what's my stove?
Yeah, what's your stove?
Well, why? What? I mean, I have, gas. Well, I have. It's complicated.
Okay.
it's weird. I know it's a weird thing. I have an electric stove. I have an electric stove.
Same. I'm electric too.
Okay.
But the Republicans have been all come and take it. I think this story just only exists to produce memes where Republicans can make jokes about gas stoves and how they're the new AR-15s.
What's wrong with gas stoves?
So there was a scientific study that came out that they might cause asthma in certain houses because of leaks, that they're dangerous, that they, the emissions are bad for the environment. So some people in the Biden administration were hinting at banning gas stoves. And then, somebody asked Karine Jean-Pierre, it was probably Peter Doocy, hey, are you actually going through with this? And she said no. They backtracked on it. But Kathy Hochul wants to ban gas stoves and has another series of appliances that she wants to ban for New York to have a green future.
We need to stop these people.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone too far now. Yes, I suffer with an electric stove. For most of my life, I have used gas stoves, and I have always been into cooking, and my family's always been into cooking. My son's into cooking, and anybody who's into cooking knows that electric stoves suck terribly. The gas stoves are the only way to cook. You don't have a feel for the heat that's being applied to the pan. I agree, Eddie Mercer. There are not enough people clicking the like on this. Yeah, if they try to take my gas stove, I'm going to go get the other thing they're trying to take from me, which is my ghost gun. And I'm going to... Jesus Christ. This is getting...
First they came to the plastic bags.
I mean, no, that's wow. Yeah, I mean, this is like plastic bags times 10. I mean, that's a very serious... honestly, reduction in the quality of life for a lot of people. I'm telling you, if you're serious about cooking and you're listening to this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It sucks to cook with electric stoves. But yes, they need to sacrifice this one convenience and pleasure that we have for this phantom menace of climate change.
Mm-hmm.
It's a phantom. Can't see it. Can't feel it. Don't know anyone who's died from it. Don't know anyone who's been displaced by it. In fact, I don't know anyone who's been affected by climate change one little tiny fucking bit. Name one person you know who has been affected by climate change directly in any tangible way. You can't. It doesn't exist. There's no... Oh my God. And they're gonna take away all the good stuff for this thing. I guess they really believe it. Is this it? I mean, they really believe that climate change is going to kill everybody and send the earth underwater in a few years? Or is this just what a lot of our friends think is just a power grab? It's just an opportunity to grab power, redistribute the economy, exert greater state control over the economy and society, to reorganize society in ways that makes it more easily controlled, right? I mean, the growth of state power, which is what every climate change activist is calling for. I mean, every single one of them wants the government to do more. Every climate change activist, every environmentalist pretty much I've ever heard of, that's their agenda. They want the government to be bigger, to have more power, to have more control over the world. And many of them are outright communists and socialists, like our good friend Naomi Klein, who I love to pieces and always will, because she said straight up, I became an environmentalist and I became interested in the climate change issue because I saw that it was a way to convince people to adopt socialism. She said this in that book, one of those books she wrote a few years ago. I mean, straight up, I just adore her for that, because that's what I had suspected for a long time was going on, that green was really always red. That was what was really going on. The green revolution, the environmentalism was a Trojan horse carrying communist revolutionaries inside of it. I mean, that's what Naomi Klein really said. And I think Kathy Hochul's not a communist or a revolutionary, but she is interested in enhancing state power because she's in control of the state right now. So she's going to want the state to have more power because she's at the head of the state. And I guess, I mean, or they really believe this stuff, because this is so ridiculous. I can't believe it. I mean, what exactly are the emissions from a gas stove compared to, say, an F-14?
Well, not even that, but like, if an electric stove probably has the same level of emissions because we're all powered by natural gas and coal anyways.
And right, the electric grid is powered by what exactly?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, it is just, I mean, we all of us in our world, this is what we do every single day. We scream about the libs. The latest atrocity committed by the libtards.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those. I get kind of tired of it. I feel sort of dumb just once again screaming about the libtards doing something tarded. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what else to do. They still are in power. They still control all the institutions. Mm-hmm. They still control the means of communication. They can kick us right off of here anytime they want, the libs, and they have kicked us off here. They could kick us off permanently anytime they want. They could take away our ability to process payments. They could take away our ability to make any money. So we do need to scream about these people because these are the bosses. These are not unimportant marginal figures. These are the boss. Liberals run our society. And as I said, they control all the major important institutions, every single one of them. Even the military, which is just stunning to me. I mean, the military used to be a bastion of realist, pragmatic, sort of conservative thinking, and not very pro-war either. Just kind of what you might call a vague paleo-conservatism dominated in the military, which was actually a really good corrective to a lot of the liberal imperialist adventurers, who wanted to use the military to conquer the world. And a lot of the guys who actually wore the uniform and carried the guns were like, hold up.
Yeah.
LBJ, I'd rather not go to a jungle and die. Thank you very much, for no good reason. And they've always been the brakes on the liberal imperialists. But yeah, I mean, nowadays, Jesus, I mean, the military's in lockstep. The vote on, was it McCarthy? No, there was some major recent vote. Glenn Greenwald was talking about this. It must, yeah, I guess it was it McCarthy? Yeah, it was McCarthy. The McCarthy vote, the House leader vote, Speaker of the House vote. Is this right? Every single Democrat voted the same way?
Yep, they were uniform on every single vote.
Every single vote.
Yeah, what was it, 13 or 14 times it took to get them in? Every single time, they all went. Every single one of them for Hakeem Jeffries.
Right. So the squad, those badass radical girl bosses, they just fall right in line. with the party leadership. They vote the way that Nancy Pelosi tells them to. Yeah, the Dems are really something. But yeah, but that's what they're
that's
very.
the thing. They could have, this was a big opportunity. They could have nominated somebody, at least symbolically, to show where they want their policy agenda to go. Or they could have made a deal with Kevin McCarthy to get him elected sooner, so he'd be beholden to them instead of beholden to the radical Republicans that they really hate.
Yeah, they could have done what the Freedom Caucus did.
Yeah.
They could have held out and forced the leadership of their party or the Republican Party to give them major concessions. And can we talk about that? I mean, the concessions that the Freedom Caucus got, what was it, $75 billion reduction in the military budget? Where did that come from? Was that Matt Gaetz who called for that?
Mm-hmm.
See, Matt Gaetz is my boy.
And Massey was on there too. Massey was
yeah. Well, that's predictable.
Mm-hmm.
But Matt Gaetz is my boy. Because, first of all, Matt Gaetz, I've said this before, he co-sponsored a bill to legalize medical MDMA. He co-sponsored it with one AOC. So the guy's got some interesting ideas. Then he calls for a reduction in the military budget. He's very opposed to wars of choice, regime change wars, all that stuff. Very anti-neocon. And he's great on things like COVID and Twitter and the FBI and the CIA. He wants to basically defund the FBI and the CIA or radically restructure them. And I gotta tell you, I mean, he's easily the best of the MAGA crowd. He also does way less of this silly grooming nonsense, although it's partly because he was accused of being a groomer. But and by the way, I just saw just 2 days ago some major anchor, I forget who it was, one of the major anchors on MSNBC referred to him as an alleged child sex trafficker. My God, that was thrown out like a year ago. They're still calling him that. It still sticks. It's amazing. The guy's not perfect, but Matt Gaetz, I'm glad he's around, and he's doing good things. But yeah, so Gaetz was leading this rebellion in the House and got a $75 billion reduction in the defense budget. And most importantly, and this will be absolutely epic, they got full subpoena power and they got control over the oversight committees. Got key people like Massey, and then most importantly, this new church committee thing, this new committee that will investigate the FBI and I guess the CIA too, or all the intelligence agencies, I guess. Without any restrictions, apparently. That's what Massey is saying. And for Massey to be on that, even just on that committee, that's really bad news. Really bad news for the FBI. That's really bad news for the Democrats and Tony Fauci and all the people they're going to be investigating. If Tom Massey is running stuff or just a part of that investigation, that dude won't stop until he gets all the answers. And I am looking forward to this.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, it was so funny to watch on Twitter all the libs like berate the Republicans for going through this process and voting over and over again, as if leadership means complete uniformity on everything all the time, as if that's what governance is everybody agreeing.
Well, as if that's what democracy is.
Yeah, democracy is everybody agreeing all the time.
Yeah. Oh, there was disagreement in the demos. This is a terrible and catastrophe, and those people should be so embarrassed for allowing disagreement to happen. Yeah, these people are the least democratic human beings on earth. I mean, they're like the most anti-democratic people they're more anti-democratic than all my monarchist friends are. They're more democratic than my fascist buddies. They are truly, I mean, they really are hostile to the will of the people, or they're hostile to the idea of allowing the will of the people to be heard. They do not want that. They like uniformity. They like conformity. They like everybody rowing in the same direction all the time. And so when you have the firebrands in Congress, known as the Squad, AOC and Ilhan Omar, the firebrand radicals, voting exactly how the leadership votes, that tells you everything you need to know about that party. There is nothing interesting about the Democratic Party. Not a damn thing. Utterly useless hacks for the establishment.
Yeah. Okay. So if somebody wanted to be politically effective, I was thinking for a little bit that they should join the Democrats because the Democrats are in power. But they are so uniform, even at the local level. I know some people try to get involved in politics, and if you don't bring up the issues that the leadership wants you to bring up, and you don't harp on their talking points, they will just you won't get invited back to meetings. You'll be suppressed every way you possibly can.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's hardly any diversity among the Democrats. If you really value diversity of thought, the Republicans are the place to be. I mean, they've got pretty hardcore libertarians. They've got hardcore Christian nationalists, basically. They've got Chamber of Commerce, old school Republican types. They have war hawks. They've got people like Lindsey Graham who want to go to war tomorrow against everybody. And then they've got Tom Massey who doesn't want to go to war with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And they have all sorts of people in between. The Republicans are certainly, whether you like them or not, they're certainly the most interesting and diverse group. And the Democrats are just one voice. They are basically monolithic.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it does show, this whole process playing out does show that, you can caucus inside the Republican Party and actually get stuff done.
The Democrats are the Democrats are the true monarchists. They should talk to Curtis Yarvin. In fact, Curtis I've seen him engage with some liberal Democrats, like Cenk Uygur. And he's very slick. What Curtis does, he tries to get them to see that they're monarchists too, that their favorite president is who? Franklin Roosevelt, who aggregated more power to himself, more unilateral power than President American history, used executive orders more than any other president. Their second favorite president is Obama, who used executive orders, more than anyone except FDR. They love the liberal presidents who acted like dictators. They like Wilson, they like FDR, they like Truman, they like all those guys. Yeah, it's interesting. The Democrats are the least democratic, possibly least democratic political organization in this country. And they love a good autocrat.
I mean, look at the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Look at the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Right. Whenever you use the word.
Yeah. It's all projection. It always is.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. East Germany was what was it called? The German Democratic Republic, I think, or something like that. The Soviet satellite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this is a great outcome. This was exactly the outcome I was hoping for. You always want a divided Congress so that no legislation is passed. And you want oversight. You want investigation. We haven't had Congress has not really investigated any serious federal agency since the 1970s, since the Church Committee, when they really went after it. I mean, the Church Committee was limited in some ways, but we learned a whole lot about the CIA from the Church Committee, a lot. And so if we can get anything like that now, it's a game changer. And the politics of the early 1970s in this country changed American politics. That was pivotal, that moment. The end of the Vietnam War, Watergate, and the Church Committee, and all the investigations that went on that revealed what the government had been doing in various ways, changed the way most Americans thought about the government. In that, after 1975, 76, polls consistently showed for the first time Americans not trusting politicians, the political parties, and the corporate media. In large part because of the debacle of the Vietnam War, Watergate, and the Church Committee revealing all these dirty secrets of the CIA. So if we can get anything like that, you will see a further reduction in the trust by American people of their institutions, especially politicians, the Congress, and the media. And the more distrust we have toward the big institutions, I think the better we're off. Although that can cause apathy too. It can cause people to tune out and not pay attention when the country goes to war. Like now, the country's at war. No one knows it, but the countries have been at war since February.
Did you see that representative from South Carolina? I forget his name, but he proposed that the National Center for the Arts, construct a bust of Zelensky to be placed permanently in the chamber of the House.
So I don't like open the New York Times in the morning. That's not the first thing I do. I don't turn on CNN. I mean, of course, I read things from the Times and I watch things from CNN every day, but that's not like my first hit. So I don't actually know what the experience is of being a liberal media consumer. You know, what's the emotional content of their morning when they look at the news, right? And I know that there was this huge production basically about Zelensky and Ukraine by the liberal media since February, lionizing him, making him into the next George Washington, making him.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Sean Penn just introduced him on the Golden Globes, and that was.
I saw that.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. Then you had the Hollywood, and whenever Hollywood celebrities glom onto something, you know that, yeah, it's a bad idea to glom onto them. Speaking of stupid people, wow. Hollywood actors. I mean, when I lived in LA, I was kind of hanging around Hollywood people for a while there, and I was just consistently impressed with how stupid they were about politics, especially. But yeah, so I mean, I wish I kind of could go back and watch how the New York Times and CNN and the Washington Post were presenting Zelensky back in February, March, April, and how they still do. Because it's really hard for me to get into the minds of these people who watch that stuff. You know, why on earth? Because I watch the Duran, I listen to Douglas McGregor and Scott Ritter and all these guys who are skeptics and opponents of Zelensky. So I've never had this rosy picture of the guy. And I'm just curious how they presented him. Like, what was it that they showed the American people to make so many of them think that this dude is some great hero? I don't know. Is it just the fact that he's standing up against Russian aggression and the evil Putin? Or is it like some specific things about him that people think is so heroic?
Mm-hmm. Well, you said you consume media by listening to people talk about stuff. If you look at magazine covers and you look at photographs and short video clips, Zelensky looks like a badass. He looks like a short, stocky. Yeah, he looks like a badass in the military. Yeah,
well, he's always wearing the military outfit, the green shirt, right? The camouflage green shirt. He's a wartime president, wartime leader, but they love him too much. I mean, Ben Stiller and Sean Penn like flew from LA all the way to Kiev to go fillet this guy. I mean, they brought camera crews with them. I mean, they got really stoked about Zelensky. Ben Stiller sees him. You've seen that video, shakes his hand and says, you're my hero. You're my hero. Like he's a 10-year-old, talking to his baseball star or something. I'm just curious. I just haven't gotten the full effect of the media's presentation of Zelensky. I just don't know how they pulled that off. I mean, it was really effective. I might say that, I mean, this is saying something, but the psyop around Ukraine is at least equal to the psyop around COVID. It has really done a number on the way people think about this war and think about Russia and think about Zelensky. It's almost none of it is right or true or accurate. It is just one lie after another, exaggeration or embellishment after another lie, like every single day. And I mean, people still think that Russia's losing the war. Mm-hmm. Just that alone. I mean, and that's easily, you can find that out. Just look at the damn battle maps. You can see where the front line is. It's like they still control 20% of the country. That's not losing, guys.
Well, I think that narrative's starting to change a little bit. Like, I think this was in Forbes. I saw it in a bunch of major publications talking about how much Ukraine's GDP has shrunk over the last year. Just talking about the devastation in Ukraine. That happened a lot, like for like New Year publications.
Yeah.
Reflecting on 2022. And Aaron Mate wrote a great piece on his Substack. Basically, let me see if I can pull it up. He called it, NATO mission leaves Ukraine destroyed, in that Ukraine's defense minister is kind of getting hip to the fact that Ukrainians are dying and they're using NATO weapons, and NATO is going to send weapons until the last Ukrainian is dead. And so this reality is dawning on a lot of people. So I think the narrative is going to change. Eventually a ceasefire is going to happen, hopefully. But I think the narrative is going to change to nation building in Ukraine as opposed to fighting a war.
Yeah, I mean, they have no electricity now. More than 50% of the grid is knocked out. At least 50%. It's probably a lot more than that is gone. I mean, you can't get power in most of Ukraine now. The dead is somewhere between 100,000, and Scott Ritter estimates it at 250,000. The official count, the count by Ukraine and by the European Union, by the pro-Ukrainians, is 100,000 Ukrainians dead. Scott Ritter is sure that it's much more than that. And if you look at the reported, the announced casualty numbers from Zelensky and the Ukraine government, it's been many hundreds every single day since February. And so you just do the math. I mean, it's six figures for sure. And those are many of the most productive members of that society who are now dead or permanently wounded, young men in the prime of their life. The infrastructure damage is ridiculous, especially since Russia started targeting infrastructure about a month ago. Bridges, roads destroyed, so much of the economy directed toward the military, so many people directed into the military, forced into the military. Conscription has devastated the economy and devastated, of course, people's lives. But then here's the ultimate irony for me. You know what this war is about, right? It's about protecting Ukrainian sovereignty. So they're sovereign, huh? Right. So the president of their country comes begging every day the United States and Western Europe to please prop up our government. Please prop up our government. We'll do whatever you want. We'll do whatever you want. I mean, this last bill they just passed that gave Ukraine zillions of dollars, forget the number, 45 billion, something like that. A big part of that money was to go to the government's operating budget, the Ukrainian government operating budget, just to keep the government of Ukraine going. They are fighting for sovereignty. No, they're fighting for enslavement. They are clearly enslaved to the West. They are doing the bidding of the West. They are beholden to the West. They are controlled by the West. It has been known for a very long time that they can't undertake any major military operation without the CIA approving it. We know that. Or someone in the Pentagon approving it. Who's sovereign? Who's sovereign? This is a puppet state. We know that. I just, it's really, I'm a historian, and this is what I wish for every day. I just wish that Americans would read the history. Just read the history before February 24th. Please, just read. And if you do me a great favor, just read back to 2014, especially. You could go back to 2004 and 2008, too, when the CIA engineered a color revolution in Ukraine that was completely antagonistic to Russia and was seeking to ultimately overthrow Putin. But 2014, I mean, Nazis in the Azov battalion and other battalions who were assigned to this were shelling residential areas in Donetsk and Lugansk, like killing civilians. And this is not contested. We're talking many thousands of civilians sitting in their homes, walking down the street, going to school, dead by actual Nazis who think and did think that Russian speakers and ethnic Russians are orcs, are an inferior race, even though, of course, they're all Slavs, but whatever. These Ukrainian Nazis, that's their form of Nazism. It's anti-Russian racism. I don't know if they care about the corporatist economic model of Nazi Germany. I think they just hate Russians the way that the Nazis hated Jews. Well, that's who was controlling the Donbass.
They hate Russians. They hate Russians the way Nazis hated Russians.
That too. Yes. Right. Boom. Exactly. Thank you. Right. Those are the people who were firing mortar shells into neighborhoods because these people wanted to separate and become part of Russia. They all spoke Russian. They had all been identified as Russian. They identified as Russian. They were overwhelmingly, forget the referenda, they demonstrated in all sorts of ways over many years that they wanted to be part of Russia. Overwhelmingly, the people in that area. If we're for self-determination, then we should be for those people joining with Russia, and we should protect their right to do that, which is why if I lived in Donetsk and Lugansk, I would have called totally for the Russian invasion. Hell yeah, if I lived in those towns there that were being shelled by these Nazis, damn straight I want Putin to come in and bring the military with him. Yes, I get that. I don't endorse everything the Russian military has done since then. Of course not. But I absolutely understand, and I basically endorse the call made by the breakaway republics for protection from the Russian military, by the Russian military. And it again, if you just read the basic history, just the basic history, the stuff that's not even contested, read Wikipedia. I've read it. I mean, it's not even that bad. If you read the Wikipedia entry on the history of the war from 2004 to 2014, that period, 10-year period in Ukraine, and you don't come away with it at least sympathetic to Operation Z, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, I think you will be at least somewhat sympathetic to this special military. You may not endorse it all together, but you will understand why it was launched. If you read that 10-year history, you will understand why this military operation was launched.
Mm-hmm. You're right that this psyop of Ukraine is as intense in some ways as the COVID psyop, but I do greatly prefer the psyop. I'm to the COVID psyop.
Oh God, yeah. The whole. I mean, COVID just as an issue, like no matter what your position is on it, just sucks as an issue. It's just gross. Like I just don't ever want to talk about it again, even if we're all right about it. Like I don't care about being right anymore. I just want it to go away. I mean, the whole thing is just nasty. Is that what you mean?
A little bit, yeah. I definitely have that feeling right now, but at the same time, I'm holding a grudge, and I'm like, you people have to pay for what you did, or the truth needs to at least be acknowledged, but whatever.
Speaking a quick thing about COVID, I just on the way here, I drove past Oakland High School. I live near Oakland High School, which is like an all black, all Latino high school. Like it's a hood high school, 100% black and Latino. And it was 3:00. So they were all walking out of the school. They were on the sidewalk, on the street, walking from school. And like half of them were wearing masks. I mean, and you think like black teenagers in Oakland wear masks when they're not told to? Of course not. I mean, and it turns out that all the new mask mandates that have been coming in, you notice there's been all these new mask mandates in schools right now across the country. Almost all of them.
Yeah.
They're almost all in ghetto schools. It's almost all black and brown kids who are getting masked up again against their will. Yeah. Because this has been shown. I mean, we know this. Most of the schools that have mask mandates now serve predominantly black and brown and poor kids, which makes sense. These very progressive teachers unions, they are very concerned about getting infected from the rabble, from the poor people. Forcing a teenager to wear a mask. And I can't believe we're still talking about this.
Yeah.
What, 3 years now? It's 3 years now.
Dude.
God, I want it over.
Yeah. Okay. But here's why I brought it up though.
Okay, sorry.
The COVID psyop, when you talk to people about COVID and when it was happening, especially, if you're a dissident on that issue, you are a threat to them. Like, get out of my space. I'm not going to entertain you at all because there's a risk that I might die. That's literally what's going on in their head. Mm-hmm. Ukraine is thousands of miles away. Most Americans can't point it out on a map. And if you just tell them to research the conflict before, just look at anything that ever happened here before February 2022. Mm-hmm. Then they realize, oh, wait, I don't know anything that happened before February 2022. And they shut up pretty quickly. Right. And the hard left was really, really good on this issue before February 2022. And they still are. Oh, yeah. And you really see the divide between the left and liberals in 2022 on this issue, especially.
I would say that the Marxist left has definitely been better on Ukraine than the libertarian right. The libertarians have been fucking up a lot the last few years. And each different faction of libertarians is fucked up in their own way. I mean, there were a bunch of libertarians in the sort of Beltway crowd, like Cato was terrible on COVID. And even, I'm sorry, my friends at Reason were pretty soft on COVID and the lockdowns. I mean, they ended up what's that?
Oh, well, right now, that's what's like so infuriating is like every content creator, every pundit, every talking head is like bragging about how they were the first person to be a COVID dissident. When
Shit.
I know what you were like. I know what you were like in May and June. I know what you were like, dude.
Shit. I was, yeah. I mean, I know where I was.
Mhm.
I never, I never accepted any of this stuff.
Mhm.
Never. I was always skeptical, even at the very beginning of the masks and the lockdowns. Never made any sense to me. But some libertarians, of course, were awesome on COVID
Mhm.
and led the way, sure, against lockdowns and the masks. But man, a lot weren't. A lot were bad. And then on Ukraine, boy, I got some good friends who are libertarians who they do support arming Ukraine. And a lot of libertarians are just kind of soft on it and sort of, make moralistic statements about, the unprovoked Russian aggression can't be allowed to stand, da 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 da. Without, again, they don't know the history or something, but they're taking very weird non-libertarian positions. So,
Well, they see Putin as the aggressor, I guess, and if you're in non-aggression principle land in your head, then Putin's the bad guy and he needs to be punished.
if you think the non-aggression principle will help you understand the Ukraine war, you should go reread some Murray Rothbard or something. But because I don't think Rothbard would have had a bad position on the Ukraine war. In fact, I'm quite sure he would have been dead right on it. But it's been disappointing for you libertarians listening. I know there are some. Look at yourself. Take some time. Take some time for introspection.
Mhm.
Rethink your choices. I know a lot of you listening are awesome and were perfect on these two issues, but some of you weren't. But yeah, Cato and Reason were terrible on COVID. I don't know how Cato is on Ukraine. Reason is horrible on Ukraine for specific reasons. Well, it's Matt Welch. I mean, I've talked to Matt. Matt knows this. He knows that I disagree with him very fundamentally about foreign policy. But yeah, they're pro-Ukraine. Reason is essentially pro-Ukraine and has been since the beginning, and it's pretty mind-boggling to me. I don't even understand that. I don't know why this is. I don't know why libertarians have shit the bed. Then you've got my friend Mises Caucus. Then the Mises Caucus has made some mistakes too, in my view.
Yeah. But just a note on the Reason and Cato. I
Yeah,
mean, they're coastal. They're not. I'm not going to call them coastal elites, but they're coastal.
totally.
Yeah.
That's what they are. I mean, they are L.A., New York, and D.C.
Yeah.
Right, where they're surrounded by blue and yellow flags. But no, I mean, I know Matt Welch he's had these politics for a long time. This is nothing new. I mean, Matt did support the Iraq War.
Mhm.
He apologized for it later, but he did. So he's got some interesting tendencies when it comes to foreign policy. And Matt's he's not the editor anymore, but he's one of the main editors at Reason. So he does determine some editorial policy. And I know that their pro-Ukraine line comes from him, which is completely fine and legitimate as long as you put forward a decent argument for it. And I just haven't seen that in the pages of Reason. But yeah, and then on the other side, I mean, people who I generally agree with enthusiastically are the Mises Caucus, who just took over the Libertarian Party. And on many things, they're fantastic, and I agree. And they're great on the war, fantastic on the war, fantastic on COVID. But they adopted this groomer discourse nonsense wholeheartedly and are talking about how it's important to fight pedophilia, as if, like, does anyone disagree with them on that? And, as if there's some like new crisis facing the children of America. Like, what? Drag queen, and they're like up in arms about drag queens and just really dumb right-wing culture war stuff. And there's nothing libertarian about it. It's irrelevant to their politics. It should be irrelevant to their politics. Yeah, I know Cato and Reason are not the Libertarian Party. These are different factions I'm describing with very different politics. But I'm saying that each faction within libertarianism has fucked up recently. I would say maybe the Mises Institute, not the caucus, Mises Institute. I mean, they're pretty solid, pretty consistent. I haven't seen them do anything bad lately, but those major factions within the movement, man, each one of them has made a different bad mistake in the last few years. And the movement as a whole was doing so great until about 2018, 2019. It was growing and growing, and more people were identifying as libertarian. And now, I don't know. I think it seems like the conservative right, the non-libertarian conservative right, is ascendant, and libertarianism is getting kind of shunted to the side again, when it seemed like it had a moment there that it would finally become sort of a mainstream movement. Jeff Schellenberger and I were talking about this. So Compact Magazine is his magazine. He's the managing editor of Compact, which I think is a fantastic magazine that is noted for its ecumenicalism. They have Marxists and they have traditionalist Catholic right-wingers, and they have all sorts of, but they don't, the one strain of thought they don't have is libertarianism. And Jeff said, yeah, we're just not that interested in it. They're interested in every weird political ideology except for that one.
Well, libertarianism in a lot of ways has become predictable in that, like, that's why I've stopped listening to a lot of libertarian podcasts, is that I know what the libertarian position is on everything.
Right.
I don't need to listen to you guys anymore. You guys are predictable.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I agree. And I spent about 10 years imbibing everything I could from them. I discovered libertarianism like in the 2000s. I didn't know anything about it before then. And I was very interested and found a lot I agreed with, some I didn't agree with, but I certainly, it changed a lot of my thinking, and I was very focused on it. And I listened to all the podcasts and knew who was who and followed it very closely, but not now. Not now. I don't listen to any or watch or read anything from libertarians anymore. I'm still, broadly in solidarity with them on most issues, I would say, the vast majority of issues for sure. But yeah, you're right. Intellectually, they're kind of done. There's nothing new coming out of them. The left and libertarians are done, which is sad because I come from those two wings of American politics, the left and libertarian. Historically, for me, all the good ideas came either from the left or libertarians. And now I'm much more interested in other right-wing formations and some of the left too. I mean, it's kind of like Compact Magazine. I'm interested in like the traditionalists, the new reactionaries, and sections of the Marxist left. I think those are now the most interesting groups to look at.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Yeah, well, the big story that's developing today is Biden and his documents. So Biden is being wrapped up in a classified documents scandal.
Right.
Not dissimilar to what Hillary Clinton went through, although Hillary Clinton was with emails, but very, very not dissimilar to what Trump went through when he got his house raided by the FBI at Mar-a-Lago over classified documents. So I think a week ago or a few days ago, well, this was actually before the midterms even, Biden's lawyers had discovered classified documents at his old office, and these were from when he was VP. So he's not president at the time, so he didn't have the authority to declassify them.
Right.
So he had classified documents still at his office, and then developments today were that he just had them in his garage next to his Corvette.
I heard, I think it was Glenn Greenwald said this. Is this right? That it was the Biden Center at the University of Pennsylvania, which is funded by the Clinton Initiative. Is that right? Is that where the documents were?
Yes.
It had something to do with the Biden Center at Penn, right? Which is
Biden. Yeah. Yes.
And the Biden Center is essentially part of the Clinton Initiative, isn't it? I think so.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I think it's a spoke of the Clinton Initiative. Mm-hmm. And so, well, here we go. I mean, man, well, we know Joe Biden's son had major business dealings in Ukraine, helping specifically develop bioweapons research labs. That's what Hunter Biden was doing. To ultimately, and we have the documents to show this, in order to ultimately unseat Vladimir Putin from power. That's what was said in documents related to Hunter Biden. From two emails to Hunter Biden from the organization that he was working with to develop bioweapons labs in Ukraine before the war. Burisma, he had lots and lots of money coming from Burisma. Hunter Biden was employed by Burisma, Ukrainian company. Joe Biden clearly intervened on Hunter Biden's behalf many times. So those dudes are up to their necks in Ukrainian society, politics, and culture, are deeply connected. And they wouldn't have had those business dealings, those business connections, were it not for the Clintons' decades-long obsession with extending NATO to the border of Russia. extending especially into Ukraine. That's why Ukraine is so important to them. And that's why the Bidens ended up there, not because they're intelligent or because they have any sort of grand strategy for global politics, but they just wanted to make some money. The Clintons succeeded in extending NATO, meaning the West, through Ukraine, effectively, right? Making Ukraine essentially a puppet of the US, making it open to business dealings with American politicians, right? Ukrainians have wanted to do dealings with American politicians for many obvious reasons, and they found the Bidens to do it. So now I'm really curious what these documents, which apparently are about Ukraine, say. Because I'll bet you they say some nasty stuff. I'll bet you they say some things that might incriminate Mr. Joe and his son, and probably his whole family, and probably other leading Democrats as well. It's about Ukraine, whereas the stuff that Trump allegedly stole or kept or whatever it was, like, all we know is that it just said classified on it.
Yeah. The allegations on the Trump documents is that they had to do with Russiagate and that he was investigating the investigations into him.
Yeah,
and,
well, as I would too if I were Trump. Yeah, but I mean, they never, I mean, right, but there's no evidence that it was anything anybody should care about. But documents related to a country that is at war that we are funding, in which you and your son had direct business dealings, gee, I think that's worth looking into.
Totally.
I mean, and it's because the liberals control the media. This is not a thing. No one cares.
Well, and you know, the conservatives are pointing this out too. There's no FBI raid. You know, there's no FBI raid, and
in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
in the middle of the night to shame him. Yeah, they didn't do that either.
They didn't throw all the documents across the floor and take pictures of them. Right. You know.
Yeah, because Democrats control the institutions. They control the media, and they control the law enforcement and the intelligence agencies. And there you go. There's your proof that that's the case. The Democrats control the fucking world. They do. I mean, Trump was a fly in their ointment, and they managed to pluck him out with some tweezers, and now the ointment is pure again, almost pure. But this thing, man, they won the House by what, 1 seat? Is that right? They have a 1-seat majority, I think it is, in the House. Thank God they got that. And now they, through the very slick tactical maneuvering of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, and I think they worked as a good cop, bad cop, by the way.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, pretty sure. I think it was coordinated. I think it was brilliant.
They talked very highly of each other, and they were very adult throughout the whole situation. Yeah,
I'm sure of it. Yeah, they were close right up until then, and all the way through it. I'm sure it was coordinated.
They were very respectful the whole time.
Yeah, it was clearly tactical. I mean, MTG has been working on McCarthy for months, I think, and had to deal with him months ago about getting subpoena power in the oversight committees. But man, Gaetz getting those committee positions, getting MAGA people onto those committee positions, getting the Freedom Caucus people on oversight committees, whoo, that's the one. I mean, that is really going to be something. I've been looking forward to this January for a long time, because I could see this coming. I thought it was going to be an easier path for the Republicans to take control of Congress, but they still did manage to squeak it out, and they've got it. They've got control of the House, and they now have control of those committees, those investigative committees, and they have blank checks, and they have subpoena power, and you better look out, Tony Fauci. This is going to get real interesting. Yeah.
The other story, or the other take on the Biden documents coming out is this, like, why didn't they just cover it up? You know, they control all the institutions. Why isn't this swept under the rug when it probably could have been? There's speculation that the Obamas are trying to get rid of Biden before 2024, and that maybe they'll try to run another candidate, and this is their way of shooing the old man out, because that Biden's ego, I think, will push him to run for 2024 again.
I just think physically he won't be able to do it. I mean, just won't be physically able to run a campaign, to govern, to sit up straight in his desk. I mean, really, he's that bad. He can barely function. He walks with that stiff gait of someone. What is it? That's someone with, that's a symptom of someone with dementia, right? I think it's something like that. It's some old person's disease. When you walk the way that Biden walks, that stiff gait he has, right? That's only if you have an ailment of a very old person. I forget which one. I think it's dementia, but the guy can't do it. And so, you know, the squad wants him out of there. I'm sure they all want him out of there. Although he's done in some ways better than they hoped for, but he's just a time bomb. You know, he's going to do something really, really bad. Not just embarrassing, but he's going to do something really bad at any moment and embarrass the entire party and embarrass all of their causes. So the thing is, they have nobody to replace him with. They have not a single piece of talent in that party. Nothing. Pete Buttigieg is their most talented politician. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, he embarrassed himself today when they had a press conference, a very rare press conference where he actually took questions. And yeah, Peter Doocy called him out on the documents thing, and Biden admitted these documents. Oh yeah, they're in my garage, and my garage is locked, and my Corvette is locked. So he basically incriminated himself on one of the very few times that he actually took a question from the press. So that makes me think that this is a coordinated, effort to get him out.
Oh, I see. Oh, you're saying that that people within the Democratic Party may have set it up.
Yes.
Ooh, you heard it here first. I like it.
I think Ben Garrison had a cartoon that implied something similar too. But this take has come out before. Yeah.
That would be sweet. You think it's true?
It wouldn't surprise me. Again, the only thing though is that it keeps me from thinking that if Michelle Obama decides to run in 2024, perfectly. Okay, yeah, this was totally coordinated.
Right.
If it's Kamala Harris, I think Kamala Harris is more of a wild card, more harder to control, more incompetent than Biden. And yeah, I think Biden has served them in every way that they need him to. He's a fake president. He's just a figurehead. He's a CGI president. And I think they can have another 4 years of CGI Joe putting the face behind whatever they need him to sign.
Yeah. Yeah. They really are a mafia. I mean, look what they did to Bernie Sanders. I mean, straight up just cheated him out of the presidency, out of the nomination, at least. And then, of course, look what they did to Trump. I mean, just unbelievable corruption, to take down Trump, breaking every rule, every norm. It's so funny. They always talk about Trump being the norm breaker, right? It's like, who's broken all the norms in the last 8 years?
Well, we need to break the norms to stop the norm breaker.
Yeah, exactly. We need to institute fascism to stop the fascist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that would be cool. I hope they did. I hope it was them. I would like that a lot. And they're certainly capable of it. They've proven that. I mean, the Clinton initiative alone could have set up Biden with this one. That's where the mafia, that's the mafia's army right there, is the Clinton initiative. It's the Clinton people. I actually I know this guy, Cody Shearer. People can look him up. Shearer. He's literally Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton's dirty tricks guy. He does Oppo research on all their opponents, and he's basically helped get some people prosecuted and I think put in prison. And Cody Shearer does the dirty work. I knew his brother Derek, who's big wig in LA politics and used to teach with me at Occidental College. But Cody actually didn't know who I was. He thought I was like one of his guys and tried to recruit me to do something, I think, for the Clintons. And I just listened to him on the phone for a long time, describe this. I forget what the operation was. It's not a big deal, but I just thought, man, I'm getting like an inside view of what goes on in Clinton world. It's a serious thing. It's no joke. I mean, the right wing is largely correct about how corrupt, how secretive, how ruthless, and how unscrupulous the Clinton people, the people around them are. And they are willing to do anything to retain power and to shape the world in the way they think it should be shaped. And this is why we have a war in Ukraine right now, is largely because of Bill Clinton and Hillary. It's really that. I would say if any two people are most responsible for the Ukraine war, it's those two. Really, if they had taken a different foreign policy in the 90s, and then their successors, who they trained, like Obama and Bush, really, because Bush in many ways came right out of the Clintons too. I mean, yeah, we wouldn't have NATO on the border of Russia, and Russia would have no reason to invade Ukraine if the Clintons had taken a different foreign policy. So those are gangsters, very, very dangerous, very, very powerful, and it's real. I mean, it's like a shadow government. It's almost like regardless of who's actually in power in Congress and the White House, the Clintons will always run major portions of American life because they control so much of the media. Now she's at Columbia, my alma mater. Now, for God's sake, like they finally formalized that relationship of sex with the goddamn Clintons and the Democratic Party. They control so much of academia. They control the deep state. I bet you the Clintons have more acolytes in the deep state than any other president ever. Yeah, I mean, and I think Hillary runs it mostly. Hillary and her henchmen, Sidney Blumenthal, Max Blumenthal's dad, and Cody Shearer, and all these people. They pull some strings all the time, and they pull strings all around the world too. That's what's so incredible about the Clinton Initiative. It's global. I mean, I think it's called the Global Clinton Initiative or something like that, or the Clinton Global Initiative. I mean, they have operatives. The Clintons have operatives who are paid on the ground in countries all over the world, who work with governments in countries all over the world and work in NGOs that have a lot of power on every continent. You know, members of the military in certain countries work with the Clinton Initiative. I mean, Hillary's like, she's a mob boss. She's Tony Soprano up in there. Telling you, don't fuck with her.
I'm doing our mandatory Ye mention, but
of course,
yeah, everybody start drinking. But Ye, one of the things that he really brought up as he was breaking up with Kim is the Kardashians are really in it with the Clintons, and they're really in it with Anna Wintour, and the whole fashion world worships the Clintons, and they have special access to these people, and they get direct orders on what they should wear and what they should do and who they should be seen with from the Clintons. And they're on their TV show, you know.
Ooh, I didn't know about that, about the Kardashians. That's really sad. I thought Kim was a little more independent minded than that.
Kim is a business person, I'd say. But I mean, she's on Hillary Clinton's Strong Women TV show. She definitely works.
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. And the Kardashians worship Anna Wintour in the fashion world, who is
makes sense.
So tight with the Clintons. Yeah.
That makes sense. Dude, another one. This was fun.
Thanks.
I think we're getting in our stride here. Getting comfortable with this. So we are going to go to Unregistered Live, which is our weekly Zoom meeting that follows Unreported. And Michael and I will be hanging out with all the patrons of Unregistered. And if you want to join us, it's really cheap. Just go to patreon.com/unregistered. If you join at any level, you will see the URL right there at the top of the page, my Patreon page. Click that URL and you'll see us in the Zoom meeting with all of our friends. And we have an awesome time. We talk about whatever we want, and it's a party. So hope to see you there. And Michael, you are the man, and I'll see you on the other side.
Thanks. Yeah, see you.
Peace.